Laura again, and we are ready for day 2 of the Valerie, Kids Valerie, and Men's Val Sew Along, sponsored by So English Fabrics. Today we are working on the piping, which you can see here. We're working on the bodice as a whole, because I'm going to do some color blocking so you can see how I do that. It's super fun. And we are going to work on those hidden pockets. Let's not waste any time. Let's do it. Welcome to day 2. We've got a lot to do today. Yesterday was a big day. Day 1 is always a busy day. Day 2 is going to be another busy day, but maybe not as time consuming as day 1. All right, so we're going to make our piping first. All right, here it is. Isn't it pretty? Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to fold it in half and we're going to press it. We're going to like a hot dog. We're going to fold it long ways. All right, so let's take one of our bodice B pieces. Okay, I'm going to turn it like this. All right, this is the front bodice. You could use the back bodice too. We're going to do it to both. So we're going to start. We're going to be placing our piping along this curve. So what I want to do is I want to find the center of that curve. And then I'm going to find the center of one of my piping pieces. All right, so what I've done is I have matched up my center pin or clip on both my rib knit, or my piping I should say, and this curve here. And now I'm going to line up the ends. Now the tutorial says that once you get to the point where you're sewing this all together, that if you're using a serger, basting all the pieces together first is probably wise, just to make sure everything gets pulled evenly. So this was the front bodice B. I need front bodice A now. Okay, so now we're taking it right side up and we're holding, this is the curve. This curve right here is going to match this curve right here. So flip it over. Okay, I'm actually going to find the center so that I can match that center point. Let's match that center point. And that should line up with your what are the things that I'm trying to say? That should line up with the notches. Your notches should line up is what I'm trying to tell you. That I'm not telling you very well. So there's a notch and here's a notch that match up perfectly. And now I'm going to match up the ends. All right, so before I go to my sewing machine, I'm going to do this with the back. So let's move this to the side. We're going to find the center. All right, then we're going to find the center of our piping. Okay, now we've matched our center marking. Now let's match our ends here, the bottom edge of each. There we go. All right, now let's grab our back bodice A. And again, let's look at our pattern pieces. This curve will match up with this curve. So we have to turn it this way because this is an armhole, okay? And this is an armhole, so this is the top. So let's match, or no, I wanted to find, let's find the center of this piece. All right, so let's match up our center clip and then our ends. And your notches should also line up as well, and they do. Perfect. So I'm going to go to my sewing machine and I'm going to baste all this on. I'll probably use a 1/4 inch seam allowance and a long straight stitch. I'm going to do that with both the front bodice and the back bodice. Then I'm going to head over to my serger and I'm going to serge it just to clean up the edges, okay? And I'll be right back. Okay, so I know the sound isn't as clear as it was before, but I'm having some issues with my microphone, so I'm having to use the microphone on the camera itself, which I don't like to do, but I'd rather you be able to hear me than to not. So this is what we're doing, so I hope it sounds okay. So now that we have these all sewn together, they look a little rough, but what we're going to do is we're going to we're going to press the seam allowance up this way towards the top of the bodice, so the actual ribbing presses down. Does that make sense? So it should look like this on the front, but it should be facing this way on the back. So I'm gonna do this by feel. I'm gonna take my time. You wanna get it nice and pressed to get all those little ripples out. I highly recommend not skipping the pressing parts. You could choose to top stitch this. I will be top stitching or not. So here's the difference between pressed and not pressed. Do you see the difference? It just is night and day. All right, so this is pressed, this is not. We need it to be pressed. Okay, so I'm gonna press the other one, and then I'm gonna go to my sewing machine. You can use a twin needle, you can use a stretch stitch, you can use a cover stitch machine. I'm going to top stitch here. If you don't want to top stitch, you don't have to. I recommend it just because it looks more finished and it lays properly. So I'm gonna press this, and then I'm gonna head to my machine. All right, top stitch. Now we're gonna press it again. If you find you have a few bubbles here and there, sometimes just hitting it with some steam will help that pull everything back to where it needs to be. Now you can see, you know, it's not perfect. Some of my top stitching isn't as straight as I'd like it to be, but overall I think it looks fabulous. All right, let's press the other one. So my iron is not working properly, which is great. Let me go fetch my other iron. Okay, I've got my other iron. This should work a lot better. There we go, look at there. Steam, it's a working. Hopefully it's not fogging up the camera too much. Okay, I like that much better. Let's look at what we got. Okay, I'm gonna iron the other one as well, because that iron was just not doing it for me. Look at that. So much better, so much better. Okay, put that there. Okay, so let's get our pockets going here. Okay, we've got our notches cut out here. We've also got notches on our pockets, so they should go about their right sides together, and they should look like this. And I can already tell that I forgot to do mirror images of these, so I need to fix that. So in my excitement to use up my scrap fabric, I did not do these in mirror images. I did them all the same. So that means I wouldn't have been able to line these up properly. So what it should have looked like when I put the pattern piece down, I should have had one right side up or one wrong and one wrong side up, so that they go opposite directions. I didn't do that, so Yeah, things happen. So just pay closer attention. Don't be like me. So anyway, so now we can line up these pockets on the side seams of both the front and the back bodice, matching up our notches. I'm just going to clip these here, and then I'm going to grab the other bodice. Cool beans, we are ready to move on. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to head to our sewing machine, and I'm going to use a stretch stitch to attach my pockets to my bodices. And I will be right back. All right, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to our serger. Well, I'm going to place my back bodice and my front bodice right side together, and I'm going to match up my shoulder seams. And I'm going to head to my serger. Oh, one of the things I did want to say is the tutorial does not recommend using a serger to attach your pockets because it does add bulk to your seam there. So she recommends, Rochelle that is, recommends using a stretch stitch or a long straight stitch. Moving on, we're going to match up our shoulder seams, and I'm going to go to my serger and I'm going to serge them together. I'll be right back. Okay, here we are. Okay, press those. Okay. Okay, one of the things that you want to make sure that you do, let me get my, all right, we've got our shoulder seams are now together, okay? One of the things now we want to make sure we do is, I'm going to put this way, is we want to press our seam allowance to our pocket. We want to press it away from the bodice, so this to the outside, right, towards the pocket. Okay, so that's the front bodice. Let's turn it over and let's do the back bodice. Now let's, I'm going to grab these by the shoulder seams and we're going to put these right sides together. All right, so here we are. We've got our pockets looking good. Just want to make sure that everything's facing out the way it's supposed to. And now we're going to line up our side seams in our pocket. A couple little pocket wings sticking out there. We're going to head to our serger or our sewing machine. And what we're going to do is we're going to stitch down the, down the side seam and then around the curve of the pocket. We don't need to stitch the bottom just yet. So just down, stop, and around, okay? On both sides. I'll be right back. Okay, now what we're going to do is we still don't have our side seams kind of together at all. So what we're going to do is we're going to match up our side seams here, right here, where the pocket, at the bottom, where the pocket meets the side seam. All right, and we're going to go to our sewing machine and we're going to sew a little bit here. We are going to sew about 1/2 inch. So it says using a straight stitch, sew your front and back bodices together at the bottom of the pocket about 1/2 inch. Okay, this will keep the side seams at the hem aligned when we add our hem band. Okay, so we're going to do that on both sides. Okay, now we're going to turn our bodice right side out. And so our pockets will naturally go to the inside. Okay, lining up with the bottom hem. I would just like to point out that my stripe matching is pretty on point today. That never happens. So Yeah, I'm gonna brag a little bit about that. Okay, so I'm actually going to clip these pockets to where they need to be because they start to bug me after a while, not staying where I put them. Okay, so optionally, you can finish these pockets a little bit more. I don't think I'm gonna do that. I think I may press it and call it a day because they look pretty fabulous. But there is an optional way of kind of top stitching and making this these pockets look a little bit more professional, I guess. Just have a different type of finish. I want to press this before I move on. Since we have finished our bodices are perfectly done, we are ready to move on to day 3. I will see you tomorrow for some sleeves.